What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Becoming a Better You podcast. It's your boy, Coach Paul, coming live and direct from my private training facility in Hayward, California. And once again, I am bringing another amazing guest to join us on today's podcast. We are in a mastermind together. We have been growing, learning, and becoming better human beings ourselves. And, I'm always here to just bring more value to you and help you be introduced to more individuals that could bring you value and help you become the best version of yourself. So I'm going to bring Veronica into the show, and she's going to tell us who she is. We're going to get to know Veronica. She's going to share some value, and we're just going to have a great conversation. What's up, Veronica? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Paul. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I am phenomenal. Just finished a really good workout with my buddy, Coach Jesus, and with one of my clients, Dennis. The three of us, we work out every morning at 8 a.m. at our private training facility. So I'm feeling pumped. I got a little, I got some blood flowing. I'm drinking my little protein shake right now and just getting ready for the day.
I love that. Honestly, I had to get a workout in before we jumped on this call. I was like, I cannot jump on this call with Paul and not have the workout in for the day. So I'm with you.
Paul, what did you do today?
Well, I just did today a little bit of like flow movement, some slow abs, just getting the body movement. We try to work out every day. So it's good to take those rests and the hard ones too.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that even on rest days or days where we're not moving our hardest, we should still move. Movement is medicine. And, a lot of people I'm actually, for those of you that can see this live, I have my elbow with a little brace right now, kind of tweak my elbow a little bit. No big deal. I'll be okay. But just because I'm dealing with some pain doesn't mean I stop. It just means I adjust accordingly.
100%. And it's so good for the mind. I feel every time I am in a rut. I mean, that's honestly the way to biohack your body. It's literally by moving. People think that if you have a problem at work and you think about these different things, that you can get out of that and get the solution by sitting down and brainstorming in a group. And really, if you go outside and run, that's way more productive.
Absolutely. And, they say that 90% of our physical and mental problems would be solved by daily movement, sunlight, and high protein.
I'm with you. I love that.
Love it. I love it. All right. Well, before we get too deep into fitness talk, tell the audience who you are, Veronica. Kind of tell them what you do, what your purpose, your goals are in life, and let's get to know you some.
Yeah. So my name is Veronica Kissling. What I do is I really help people realign their businesses so that it's aligned with their purpose and vision, meaning what they really come here to do in this world and what they feel their calling. And it's that's greater than them. So really the people that come to me are those that have achieved a level of success, but they want to get to the next level of success through impact. So it's all about giving back and wanting to leave that legacy.
I love it. And for the audience, I want to point it out to you that although she's talking about working with people that have businesses, the concepts we're going to discuss today can be for anyone. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be a business owner, but you could be a parent. 90% of my clients are moms, right? So you could be a parent. I'm a parent. You could be an employee that just wants to be a really good employee and move up in the ranks. You could be a student. You want to be better in school. You don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur to take on the concepts we're going to talk about today, because it's all about personal development and growth and becoming the best version of yourself. So, Veronica, how do you work with your clients and help them develop those skill sets so that they can level up in their businesses?
Yeah. So the first one, like I said, I always like to start out with the purpose. And this applies to absolutely everyone, because it doesn't matter what you do. There still are stories that made you who you are, and the values that created you as an entity, you, Paul, will translate and come way back from our childhood. So it's really first starting out with that purpose. What is it that you're really called to give back to? And who do you want to help, right? From there, we go through all these different processes of who are you as a person? What is your core identity? Meaning, what are your values? What are your habits? What are the stories? And from here, it's okay, let's evaluate all different areas of your life. How are your relationships, friendships, your work, everything. And then being okay, so this is currently where you are. With the beliefs that you have, it's where you've taken up to right now. So where do you want to be and how do you want to feel? Who do you want to essentially show up as? And that it's the whole process of becoming that through all the mindset work that we undergo, all the different habit stackings like this, like going and working out every day, working on your mindset, whatever that may look for you, because everybody's so different. That is what we hone in on.
I love it. And you know what? I really love that you talked about identity, right? Because identity is literally my keynote speech that I've given twice to both of my live events. I'm also speaking at a business entrepreneurship and speaking event in Las Vegas on September 26th. And I'm speaking on identity at that event, right? And so the fact that you talked about identity, because I feel like us as human beings, our identities evolve over time, but our perspective on the world around us and our environment play a direct role upon our identity or the identity we take on or think we have, and I'll use myself as an example. I took on this identity of like a criminal, a drug addict, a gang member, a convict, like all these things that I took on. And now I have an identity of a father figure, a business owner, a serial entrepreneur, as they would call it. And now my identity is Coach Paul. Like I talked to myself as Coach Paul. I introduced myself as Coach Paul. Everyone calls me Coach Paul, right? Whereas in past life, I had a different nickname, which we don't have to discuss here. But like when I was in prison and I was in the hood and I was trying to be some tough guy, like I had a different nickname. And so now I've taken on this new identity that's different from the identity I once had. And that ties into that next piece you talked about was your purpose. Right? Because I feel like your identity and your purpose need to line up, right? And if you create an identity around serving your purpose, you can be more successful in any area of your life.
Yeah, I think it just feels so effortless when you actually know a direction that you're heading towards. It's literally the simplest analogy. It's like swimming against the tide versus swimming with the tide.
Yeah.
And really when you embrace that, and with you, like when you made that decision to do that identity shift, yes, it might have been a little rocky. And sometimes you were like, well, is that even my identity? And all these like self-doubts might creep in. But in the end, you might have stepped into it being like your alter ego. Like, what would Coach Paul do? And then eventually you step into that person so often that it becomes you, because you create the habits and the mindset and everything that it entitles to be Coach Paul.
Absolutely. And like one of the key concepts I actually talk about in my keynote speech is the 3 levels of identity. And a lot of people don't talk about the middle one, right? And so that's the one I really hone in on, because people talk about like, okay, identity, who I am right now and who do I want to become? But there's a middle ground, right?
Yes.
And the middle ground is, who do I have to be right now to become that identity I want to have one day? Right. And so I look at it like, okay, if we have, I use this with my fitness clients and they say, okay, coach, I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to lose 40 pounds. Okay, cool. So you're not going to lose 30 or 40 pounds in the next 4 days. Okay. It's not going to happen. You probably won't lose it in the next 4 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, 16 weeks. We're looking at a 6 to 8 month process to lose 30 to 40 pounds. All right, cool. So right now you're a woman that wants to lose 30 to 40 pounds. And your next identity is the person that lost that 30 to 40 pounds, and you're toned and you like the person you see in the mirror. Who do you have to become right now? Right? And who do you have to become right now in order to lose those 30 to 40 pounds? We have to become someone that exercises regularly, that gets their steps in, that tracks their food, that drinks plenty of water, that gets sunlight. You have to become that person right now. Now, becoming that person right now doesn't mean you automatically lose 30 to 40 pounds. But if you become that person right now, you will be one step closer each and every day to losing that weight.
Yes. And it's all about how you say it's losing that weight and getting there. It's that middle ground, that gap that sometimes overwhelms people so much. And they think like that identity is so far out that I don't even resonate with it. So I always like to say like it's about the incremental things, but it's also like even like micro shifts within your identity. Instead of saying like, you seeing yourself as an athlete, be like, I am stronger. Like I am stronger than I was yesterday. And it's like giving those micro wins and like stacking those up so that you're able to do that incremental shift till you actually fully become that person that loses 30 pounds. And the thing is, like, we want this like pill that's like quick, right? And it takes a long time. I can tell you, I started my work for the identity that I am right now and that I want to be probably like 2 or 3 years ago. And I've solely working on this. Like, if it's my job for like a whole year, it was my job to just work on my identity. That meant my skills, my mindset, even how I receive. I couldn't receive a compliment back then. It was becoming this feminine version of me that had everything and gave back in all the ways that she's been wanting to for the past 15 years.
Yeah, love it. I love it. Okay, so I really want to hone in for the audience to really like understand what you said about those micro shifts, right? Those micro shifts, because so many people, and this is where like for anyone that follows me on social media, you'll hear me talk about this all the time. I'm 100% against all these bullshit fad diets, right? And because like it's this extreme mentality to lose 100 pounds in a month because you starved yourself, that's not healthy. And it's not. I love micro shifts. I love taking a client and be like, all right, for the first 2 weeks of the coaching program, you're just going to track your food in the app, and I'm going to tell you which items you ate that are probably not the smartest choices. And we're going to slowly take those out. We're going to replace those with healthier options. Or I'm going to give you recipes of the same exact food, but in a healthier manner. And before you know it, you've made those micro shifts time and time again. You know, what I find a lot of people is they want those, like you said, that magic pill that they're going to just pop this pill, they're going to lose weight. Or they're going to pop this pill, they're going to be rich. Or they're going to pop this pill, they're going to be happy. And you know what? It doesn't work that way, right? And you know, you talked about your micro shifts and the transition and time it took you to change, you know. When I was 22 years old, you know, I committed a crime that had me looking at 27 years in prison, right? And I ended up doing 10 years, and I did a full over 10 years in prison. And during that 10 years in prison, I had micro shifts along the way. I didn't get all the judge hit the gavel, 10 years in prison. I'm like, oh man, I found God and I'm going to start going to changing my ways. Like, no, it took a long time for me to change my ways. And there was a lot of ups and downs. It was a roller coaster, you know? But I made micro changes along the way. I became utterly obsessed with fitness and became really educated on fitness and nutrition. I read books and magazines so I could really focus on helping myself and helping those in my circle around me. I enrolled in college classes while incarcerated. I started working on a degree. But these were all micro shifts, because don't get it twisted. I was still participating in criminal activity in there. I was still getting high. I was still drinking. I was still getting in fights, right? And there was moments like when my mom died 5 years in, I gave up for a long time. And I stopped making those micro shifts. And I was making micro shifts back to the old person I once was. You know, it wasn't until 9 years in when I finally hit that point where I was like, I'm tired of this, man. I'm tired of this. Like, my life is just a mess, and it's time for me to make a change. And I really dove into it. So now we're going on, like, in August will be 7 years. I've been actively working on truly, like, not just actively, but aggressively working on myself, right? And making micro shifts every single day and doing all these different things that I do to become a better person, just like bringing this podcast to light and bringing this information to the audience, bringing amazing human beings like you onto the show, right? So that we can show the world, like, change can happen, change is possible. It might not happen overnight. It took me 9 years out of a 10-year prison sentence for me to finally say, I'm all in. I was only halfway in for most of that prison sentence, you know? And so I love that you, like, talked about that, right? And so I assume, and I'm pretty sure you do, because, you know, you're just awesome like that, but I assume this is pretty much what you do with your clients as well, right? You help them recognize those micro shifts.
You have to. I mean, if not, you get overwhelmed. Like, the brain physically cannot hold capacity for it, and you'll collapse. It's like, you know, when you have too much work and you're like, I don't know where to get started. You get overwhelmed because there is an information overload. So it's the incremental shifts, and it gets easier, and it gets, like, it's that habit, like, stack winning. You know, I start out with a client, and at the beginning they come with me and they're like, I just have this belief, but I really want you to, like, help me, and, like, let's see where my business goes. And then after a month and a half in, they're like, oh, I'm starting to notice what my patterns are. What are the beliefs holding me back? And it's like the incremental. When you think about working out at the beginning, it's going to be really hard for you to do the technique and for you to grow a muscle. But then I've been working out for 15 years. So now I'll stop working out in a month. I can get my muscle back because I have muscle memory and I learn how to engage those tiny little muscles that make the whole difference. That when you start squatting, it's just a normal up and down. And then you're like, oh, I have to contract here and I have to play the feet like this. And all these little things that will build that pillar for an excellence. So it's same with the beliefs. Like the beliefs might still be coming up, right? The same one. For example, fear of success. But the first layer of it, I've always found it to be, can I or can I not be successful? And that is always the first layer. And that's where you start. Sometimes I start with clients that are in that layer. That's where I was at one point. And then it's like, even the other ones, like, how can I feel all the responsibility from 400 employees having to work under me. I feel like their lives and their families are based on my business. So if I fail, I'm not only failing for myself and my family, I'm failing for 400 other families and their families. And that is not necessarily true. And that is where you have to work on these different beliefs to get to the next level. Same as you have to increment that weight on when you squat to be able to get to that next level. If you want to grow your glutes, you're not going to grow them with 5-pounders. Let's be real.
Not at all. Or no resistance.
You can shape them very nicely, but you can't grow them. So it's a business. You can shape it very nicely. It can be perfect with the same beliefs that you have, but it'll stay there. If you want to grow them, you have to put some pressure tests into your own beliefs so that you're able to access that next level.
I love that. You know what? I've never heard that term, pressure test, but I like that. I'm stealing that one. Pressure test. Yes, putting a pressure test to your own beliefs in order for them to grow. Like they say, diamonds are created from pressure, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people don't really take on. More people, I feel, are focused on the final outcome or the results rather than being focused on the process, right? And, when you know the results you're looking for or the outcome you're looking for, the process becomes more enjoyable because you can see it start to work, And I was like talking with one of my clients the other day, right? And she showed me these pictures. She showed me these 2 pictures. Her name is Jaleesa. Jaleesa, if you're listening to this podcast, you're absolutely amazing. I know she listens to this show because she's always telling me, like, when I have amazing guests. I know she's going to come on. She's like, Veronica was great. I loved her so much. But Jaleesa and I were talking the other day, and she was showing me these pictures, and she was showing me a picture of her and her daughter before she started training with me, right? And if you're a parent, I want you to lean in and listen closely. Whether you're on the podcast, you're watching this live, I want you to hear this out because I'm a parent, right? And so I get this, and I want you to know with the moms that I work with, this is what we're doing. This is the change we're creating. So she showed me this picture of her and her daughter, right, before she started with me. And then she showed me a picture of her and her daughter that literally 2 weekends ago when they were up in Seattle, right? And the pictures were like such a huge transformation, like a ridiculously huge transformation. She's lost over 40 pounds with me, right? But 40 pounds of body fat, not water weight, not muscle mass, not, like all this weight people lose when they do these crazy fad diets. Like, no, this is a legitimate muscle mass because we're using proper techniques and skill sets to determine this, such as measurements, such as things like the body scale, the in-body machine, body fat percentage, all these things. And what we've been able to determine based upon this was that she's had a huge transformation in her life. But this is the part I want all the parents to listen to. This is the part that we want to lean in on. Her daughter's pictures had changed too, right? Her daughter's pictures had changed as well. And it's not that she made her daughter work out. Her daughter's not doing a fitness plan with her. She just changed her habits. She changed her identity. And because she changed that identity, she set that example for her daughter, and she started creating a shift in that. And we started this conversation talking about identity, but also talking about purpose. And I'm a firm believer that my purpose on this earth is to help the youth. My purpose, everything I went through from youth incarceration to youth homelessness to dropping out of school to being on drugs, being physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually abused, everything I've been through was to create the person I am today, the identity I now have, with a purpose to serve the youth and serve the community. And by helping moms, I'm able to help their kids, right? So her daughter's never worked with me, right? Her daughter came to one of my live events and heard me speak and heard some of the other speakers, and hopefully that inspired her. But the example she's setting for her daughter is quite possibly changing and saving her daughter's life.
Yeah.
And one of the things you mentioned, well, you've mentioned a lot of good stuff so far, but was that pressure, right? Yeah. And we had to put just enough pressure on her till she was finally in a place where she's like, I'm not just doing this for me, I'm doing this for my kid.
Yeah, and that's so powerful, because you said something there that really will resonate with people, that it's enjoying the process. And the thing is, and I've been there, it's hard to enjoy the process only because we don't love ourselves with that identity. So that's why we never get to enjoy the process. If you really think about it, all successful, quote unquote, people fall in love with the processes. But why can they fall in love with their processes? Because they have already shifted into an identity that they love.
Yes.
So from there, they're like, oh, I love myself. Like, how much can I love myself more? How much success can I bring? How many people can I impact? But they're starting from a place of love. So that is really like the key there, where I used to be like, I hate this process. Like, who can like the processes when I just want to be that person? I just want to get that body. I remember I didn't like my body before. And now it's like, I might have a better body before, but I love all the process of it now because I love who I am now. And it's a whole transition that you have to undergo in order to actually fall in love with the process. And it all starts by loving yourself first and loving the identity that you've crafted and building those micro identities that you're able to like hone in, so that you're able to bring that love, so that you love that process as you go. So that's very powerful. And I also think I love how you are so clear on your purpose. And I think the purpose remains the same throughout the life, but there's a caveat there. Your purpose is usually something that's attached to your core values. So these are things that happen in your childhood. So it's like how you grew up. Who did you look up to? Or you were like, I don't want to be like that person. I don't want to be like my father. Or I do want to be like my dad. And then it's reciprocating that throughout your life. I think what changes for your purpose is the message that you communicate.
Yeah.
I'm having a conversation later on today on my Instagram that it's with this woman who her and I have connected so deeply, but she is 59 right now. And her purpose, instead of saying like, oh, I have to retire, her purpose is like, I'm going to double down and I'm actually going to start building a whole new career at the age of almost 60.
Wow.
Start spreading this message. And so many people think, the polarity, the conversation that we're having is the polarity between me that I'm in my 20s. So, and I started this in my early 20s versus somebody that's almost at their 60s, where people usually say like, oh, you're too young for that, you're unqualified, or you're too old for that, you're unqualified. Like, why don't you just go retire, go enjoy the life that you have, that you've created? And when you have a purpose and you are driven towards communicating that message, for her, this message came about 7 years ago. So now she's shifting into this message. So for you, I'm sure the way that you are and the really core deep values to you are probably the same way that you're communicating now. You want to be that person to actually lead by the figure that you had, or you actually want to completely be an opposite figure of whatever you grew up with.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I think I also think it could be a little bit of both. Right? I think it could be a little bit of both, because like growing up, like my dad did his best, but his best wasn't necessarily the best for me. Yes. Same with my mom, they both had their struggles, their issues. And same with my stepdad, and so like those three human beings, there's pieces of them like I never want to do that to my kids, or I never want to do that to my clients, or I never even want to think like that. And then there's pieces of them like literally, I mean, for those of you that are on Facebook and YouTube, you can see my logo. Veronica, you can see my logo too, right? Yeah. On my logo, I have a heart with a peace sign in it, right? And the reason I have that is my mom, once she got clean and sober and stopped using drugs and alcohol and stopped, committing crime herself, right? She was always like really like hippie-ish. So her thing was like peace and love, peace and love. And she would send me cards and send me letters while I was in prison. And those cards and letters would always be signed off peace and love, right? And so now me serving this purpose of giving back to the world, especially like the youth and serving the youth, right? And coming from a background of hatred and violence and aggression, changing that thought process, changing that identity, right? I've adopted this idea of peace and love, right? And so now it's in my logo. It's literally a part of what I promote within my businesses, because I want that to be an attraction that people come to me for, right? That they know with me, they're going to get love. They're going to find peace, right? They're going to, and sometimes it's going to be tough love. That's just how Coach Paul gets down, but it's still going to be love. It's never out of animosity or hate. It's all about just serving others and helping more people, and I wanted to like really commend you on what you're doing with your clients as well. Like the fact that you're taking this woman that's 59 years old and saying, hey, check this out. Like, I want to give you value, right? And I want to help you, where everyone else, because like you said, everyone else is like, oh, you should just retire. And I think that's kind of the society we live in, where, like a lot more, the reason so many of us individuals like you and I am these serial entrepreneurs, these whatever you want to call it. I call myself a serial entrepreneur because I'm always like, what else can I do? What else can I do? Like, right. And they all tie into each other, but I'm doing all these little side gigs and things. But entrepreneurs, like, it's one of the hardest gigs out there, and the reason being is because our society promotes this idea of work a 9 to 5 until you're 60 or 65 and then retire and live off of your retirement or your 401k or whatever. And I'm like, I'm cool. I don't want to do all that, So the fact that you're taking someone and you're helping her walk through what society is probably telling her she should be doing, which is retiring, and saying, nah, you have this purpose, you have this vision, and I'm going to help you see that through. That's just epic right there.
Yeah, it's people try to put us in boxes, and we put ourselves, honestly, we put ourselves and others in boxes. We're like,
say that again.
We're like, he doesn't want to give anything back, and it's like, really the true work is about getting everybody, even yourself, out of a box, and it's hard. I mean, I still put people in a box. Like, let's be real, it's part of who we are, but it's really the core of entrepreneurship. The hardship of it is you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe that you are worthy of it. It's not only the self-belief, but also feel like you're worthy of receiving that. And those are two key components to the core belief of who we are. So Morty Lefko says that there's 3 mother beliefs, and 2 of them are, I'm not important and I'm not good enough, or I'm not enough.
Wow, that's good.
So the root of everything, if you dial every belief, every fear that you have, and you dismantle it, he believes it comes down to those 2. And then the third one is making mistakes is wrong. Which I don't know if I fully believe, but I feel like there's always like, and what if, like, maybe the fear of success or fail leans a little bit into that. But yeah, I think worthiness is the root cause of everything. I know that's where imposter syndrome can also come from. So, yeah. I mean, obviously there's 2 sides. You're actually not qualified, and go get qualified, go learn a little bit more. And then there's a side where it's all about worthiness.
Yeah. And I think that, that also dials into, like you said, like part of imposter syndrome is whether you feel worthy or not, or whether you have actually acquired the skill sets necessary. But I also believe, like, if we take ourselves out of that box, right, anyone's capable of acquiring those skill sets necessary.
Yeah.
Like I hear people tell me, like, they tell me, and I don't know if you get this, but it kind of pisses me off. People like, you're so lucky that you have your own business. Like, yeah, I worked my ass off to get here. Like, less than 6 years ago, I had a backpack with some clothes my little brother gave me when I got out of prison, and I had $200, and I went straight to a drug program for 90 days where I shared a bedroom with 3 other men, and I had a curfew, and I had to go to classes. And after that, I lived in a halfway house for 18 months where I shared a room with another man for another 18 months while I went to school, while I got my certifications, while I worked multiple jobs that I hated until I could stack up enough money to get a job, finally my one and only job in the fitness industry. And then I would get up at 3:30 in the morning to coach 5 a.m. classes for them and work 6 hours a day with limited sleep and limited food. yeah, I've earned my way here. And I know you have too. And I know that like
Mhm.
most people that are entrepreneurs have worked really, really hard to get there. And then people see me like yesterday, I worked a solid 8 hours yesterday. I started early in the morning before my family had even woken up. Right. I gave a solid 8 hour hard push. I got my workout in. I trained a couple clients in person. I worked on some projects for my business. And then because my kids are out of school and I know my girlfriend's working from home, I left my facility. I went home and I took the kids to the park. I got them out of the house because my girlfriend's working from home and she couldn't, she's working, right? I went home. I said, guys, put your clothes on. We're going to go to the park. And I took them to the park and I played baseball with them. And people were like, wow, how can you just like take your kids to the park in the afternoon? That's because I worked since 6 a.m. while you were still sleeping, right? And guess what? I've worked really hard to get in a place like this. Today, I'm working a 12-hour shift for myself, right? And I'm only getting paid for 6 hours of it, right? So it's like the reality of it is individuals can accomplish anything they want to accomplish if they take themselves out of the box or stop letting others put them in that box.
Yeah, and it's really about, it's also clearing that mind space. Like if you have all these fears that are popping up and all these decisions, like that's why they say like if you're a fast action taker, like you just make things happen because you either fail or you don't, and you just move on. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's good or bad, right? There, I've been in that mode, and now I'm actually in the place where I'm like, no, like let me take intentional time to sit with my emotions and see
Yes.
what's coming through. And now, like even I have a full day devoted to just like creativity. That is
Mm.
letting out my feelings, developing new things, whatever that I want that to be, like revamping my process, making seeing how I can do them better. Because I was so used to being in this MO of like, let's go, let's pick it up, let's go, let's take that action, let's move forward. And like you said, you take your kids out. That is a mind, it's a time for mindfulness. And it's a way to enjoy your process, because I do think that while we are in this go mode where our business is thriving, if we take a step back, that is where like the biggest breakthroughs come. In that stillness and that boredom, that is how I bored myself for a while I was working on myself and working on my mindset, working on my formation. And then everything came because I wasn't so, my mind was not going 1,000 miles an hour where I couldn't even see the forest. I was just seeing the trail in between the trees,
Yeah.
and being that precise and being that efficient, because that's what I was wired to do. And now I'm like, no, let me actually take a step back and let me evaluate. Let me see where I want to go. Because when I bring that clarity and I'm just not like going until I actually like get tired and stop running, if I actually decide to be like, this is the trail that I want to take and I know what the milestones are, going for a run is easier.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Veronica, this has been a great conversation. We are coming close to the end of the show. Um, I I'm so happy we made this happen. I know you and I we had a couple moments where like you couldn't make it, I couldn't make it. We were kind of playing with each other's schedules. We finally figured out how to make this happen. And that's what life is all about. Things don't always work out the first time. They don't always work out perfectly. But if it's important enough, like getting you on this show was important to me because I knew you would bring value to the audience, right? If it's important enough, you'll find a ways to make it happen. I always like to ask my guests at the end of the show to leave the audience with some value. Maybe it's a core belief, maybe it's a quote, maybe it's an action step, like go do this, a call to action, something. Leave the audience with some value, please.
That's a good one. So I would say that the best thing that you could do is really what we spoke about, evaluating where is it that you are and where you want to be, and really evaluate if you are happy with the current person. And the question that I always like to use, and I drive myself, and I would encourage everybody to live by, or at least to explore what that would look like, is, and I have it written down in the mirror, if I had 3 months to live, what would I do today?
Mm.
And if you were to have only 3 months of life, would you be proud of the legacy and the impact that you've created? And then the answer is no. and figure out what you truly want to leave the world with, because we are here to become a better version of ourselves, but not only ourselves, but those around us. Like the story of your client, where just her kid even improved by, call it not osmosis, but but just like being, existing energies, frequencies.
Yeah.
It's about that. It's about when you elevate yourself, even those around you will feel that frequency. And I know that's one of my superpowers. I have that confidence transfer when I work with people, because it's that energy that you bring that just by proximity, you're able to absorb on it.
I love it. Love it. So much value there. Let everyone know where they could find you.
Instagram, at Veronica Kissling with a double S.
Love it. Thank you so much for hopping on the show today and bringing value, Veronica.
Thank you, Paul.
Bye. All right, y'all. There goes another epic episode of the Becoming a Better You podcast. Like I said at the beginning, she was going to drop some value. I told you guys this was going to be a great conversation. Remember, go subscribe, Instagram, follow me, the Coach Paul, THE_coach_Paul. If you have any questions, fitness, nutrition, mindset, you want to connect with Veronica, she dropped her thing. I will also drop her information in the show notes of this show. We're on Apple, Spotify, podcasts, all that good stuff. As always, peace and love. Talk to you soon.